What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Humble Hustle Project. My name is Jay Kailahi. I'm your host. As always, we are in here every Wednesday, dropping episodes, and in Clubhouse every Thursday to follow up and dive a little bit deeper in conversation. Today, I'm super excited to have my guest here today, one of my brothers of many years, Gabe Ruzzier-Gaul. My man, how are you doing today? Thank you for being here, brother.
What's going on, Jake? Good to be here, man. I'm excited to talk to you.
Dude, I was really excited to have you on as a guest, especially one of my earlier guests, because um, one, we know each other so well, and we have years of experience with each other, not only being roommates at some point, but kind of how we met and our life trajectories. Although we've kind of found our own lanes, it's been really cool to see how you developed your own. So, if you don't mind, can you give yourself a little introduction, who you are, what you're up to? Um, and where you're from.
Yeah, right on. Um, like you said, my name is Gabe. I am from Northern California. I grew up in West Marin, not far from Jake's hometown, but we actually met up in Santa Rosa in junior college together at a real cool time, I think, in both of our lives, and it's really interesting. Like you said, we each have our own sort of our own lane, our own rhythm now. I'm in Santa Barbara, California, where we graduated from UCSB. I stuck around, um, and having had that introduction and sort of started cultivating our friendship when we were 19 or whatever it was, and grinding through junior college, trying to figure out our direction, going through the motions and working out together, having life talks together, figuring out what to study and why. Um, and now this is a real cool sort of wrap around full circle to being young professionals and driven and having these types of conversations. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah,
I'm,
man. I want to pop in there because one of the things that I want to drive home for people is like when people talk about having accountability buddies, like this is the man for me. Like if you want to talk about me 4 years ago, I've gained the weight back, but I lost as much as like 80 pounds. That was a direct connection to Gabe's experience of losing a ton of weight because we were just like
yeah,
getting after those workouts, teaching me how to eat a little bit cleaner because I know I like to eat and whatnot. But
yeah,
yeah,
we'd
man,
be in the gym on the regular, study sessions. Yeah, that accountability. That's
yeah,
it, man. I'm grateful for you. And I'm glad to be here, sort of spreading that love.
yes, sir. So our conversation today, I wanted to start us off with jumping into kind of what you do for work, man. I think uh,
Yeah,
somebody like yourself at the age that you are and the work that you are doing is something that's pretty inspiring for at least people in our age group and people coming up out of college, out of high school, um, that want to take control over their own uh, 9 to 5 a little bit, their own career aspirations, but you're somebody that's really doing it, and I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll go into a few other topics.
yeah, no doubt. So I have a business called Green Spot Farming, and it is an agricultural startup company. I work here in Santa Barbara, where there's a rich agricultural context in the area,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially, I have a partner who has some land, has some fruit trees, and we got together talking about sort of broad stroke problems with the food system, challenges that are approaching for California and sort of our culture and also our society producing food. And so we came up with the idea for Green Spot as a sort of proactive solution to diminishing land to grow food on and increasing population. So we have an increasing demand for food and less space to do it on as we build houses to house all the people who live in California.
Mm-hmm.
Population spills over from LA, spilling further north and south. But um, essentially, we do fruit farming, but we do it differently. So we are, instead of a large chunk of land where you farm a monocrop, which would be like one type of fruit or vegetable, we take little pockets of space, we call them nodes, on our distributed farm,
Mm-hmm.
and aggregate that production in our area. So it could be a fruit tree in somebody's backyard. It could be an orchard that's on a property and no one takes care of it or harvests the fruit. And there's a lot of food wasted that way. So our company goes around to these pockets of food production. We harvest it, and then I work with local retailers in our food system here in Santa Barbara County to get that food onto someone's table and to add value to what would have been food waste or what would have been a chore for folks to pick up their lemons after they hit the ground and you can't eat them. We sell them into the food system. We add value to it. We split the profits back to the landowners so they can have an extra incentive to do something rather than nothing.
Mm.
And then the other side of that, and what I might be most excited about, is we do tree plantings as well. So the way we grow our farm, outside of identifying spaces where there's fruit growing already, is I work with landowners who have space and don't have fruit trees yet, but could very easily, because of the climate here, be productive farmers, as we call them. So our business goes around, we identify these spaces, we introduce and integrate fruit trees. So we cover the cost in planting. Say you've got an acre of space, we'll give you 10, 20, 50 trees, whatever you've got the space to grow. You become a fruit farmer, and then for the next few decades, you'll be creating one, healthy food for the food system. You get access to it. Um, Two, you get some passive income. So as we harvest and sell your fruit into the food system, we share the profits back. So sort of in the same way that Airbnb takes that extra bedroom in your home and allows you to monetize it, rent it out. We're doing that with people's green space, as we call it. And then three is we're planting trees. It's an environmental benefit. It's something we need to do. There's a lot of carbon in our atmosphere, and one way to sink it down, of a win-win-win or a triple bottom line, where it's good for the environment, it's good for both parties involved, and there's a general sort of uplifting nature to it because people get involved in the food system, and we create more healthy food and we create value from it. So that's what I've been up to for the past almost 2 years now. And it's been going great. We've had some real positive trends. We're moving a few thousand pounds of fruit every week here and there all over town, and we're feeding people.
Again, these are trees that people can benefit, earn income off of as a byproduct of just having them in their backyard. Business owners could have it in their parking lots, and y'all
Yeah,
handle the entire harvest from picking to distribution to getting them into stores. Um,
that's
do and when you think about what's constantly been trends, at least that I've seen in around me, is like this socially conscious, environmental friendly entrepreneurship that I think is
mm-hmm.
like a cool trend that, you know, there's a there's a moral responsibility that businesses, at least in our generation as we're coming up, we see very much intention to provide.
Let me throw something in there. It's funny when I take this idea around, because I'm sort of the boots on the ground for this. So I carry the message,
Yeah.
and I try and get people working with us and involved in the food system and things. And when I talk to some old heads around town who maybe it's a church pastor, and churches have tons of land that they're built on, and that land stays idle outside of the church structure itself.
Mm,
It's a municipality, an HOA. They have a collection of properties, and green space is abundant in between these homes. Schools, another great option, where there's all this field space and things like that that isn't being exactly put to use. It's not productive. But
mm,
I'll carry this idea around and introduce it to someone who's maybe in a management position, or a pastor, whoever's in control of these spaces. And often it's met with an admiration of the environmental sort of incentive of it. And they say, wow, your generation is so green, and
mm,
you guys love taking care of the earth and things like that. And why are you so interested in that? And it's funny because it's not really that's not how I frame it. And I think a lot of people in our generation who are working and anything environmental in any direction. Maybe it's financing solar projects, maybe it's growing food in different ways, whatever it is. It We might love it, and I personally do. I love planting trees, but also we don't really have a choice. We have to figure out how to do things differently. There's no leeway there, so we
Mm,
can't continue to do things the way they've been done for the past 100, 200 years. And that's sort of how this was born. It's time to switch up, and it's time to do things differently, and it's whoever beats the other competitors to the punch is going to get established first. And so we're hoping to be the largest fruit supplier in California, and we're on our way to 1 million trees. We're far from it, but the scope is large, and we think that we can produce a lot of healthy food this way. So
damn, man. I'm juiced about it because one, I get to benefit as a friend from the fruit that you're producing. Whenever you come to town, I know you always bring a big bucket.
yeah,
Granted, I'm not the biggest fan of avocados, and so I get roasted for that. But no, but I want to get back to a little bit more about you and kind of like how did you fall into this lane, or did you fall into it? Did you identify it? What was kind of your trajectory
yeah,
to
good
show
question.
up on this field or in this career lane?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018 from UCSB, and I didn't quite know what my next move was going to be. So I told myself I was going to stick around Santa Barbara for a year,
Mm,
and there's two reasons to do it. First and foremost, it's a beautiful life here. It's a really sweet lifestyle. There's lots of proximity to nature and good weather and all those things that make you a happy person when you're living here.
mm,
But I also wanted to give myself a chance to build something. So instead of committing to a 9 to 5 or a corporate position where I could step right in and start climbing the ladder and begin that whole process, I figured that option would be there. And what might not be an option later on is a chance to build something from the ground up. So
mm,
I didn't know what it was going to be. I had some really cool conversations with my partner in this, and like I said, talking about these problems that we see on the horizon, and just sort of working backwards from that. And so for me, it was a chance to have some creative control in my life, and to start something rather than join something, and to
mm.
have that agency to sort of set the tone for my lifestyle, and to get something going.
Dude, so part of that sticks out to me is like you more or less have control over your 9 to 5, and when it comes to at least me and what my own goals, or at least when I dive into conversation with individuals, or even students in my own career lane that are trying to figure out what their life will look like after education or after college, um, you know, is having that control over your 9 to 5, not
Mhm.
exactly what you said, just working for somebody else explicitly, and that you're producing something just for them. And
Yeah.
is do you have anything comments about, like, how are you intentional with the work that you do? Like, a lot of people glamorize, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm starting my own company. Is it the same work that you got to put in? Is it a lot less structured? Is it more structured? Is it,
Yeah.
what does it look like compared to people who dive into either that corporate ladder, or whether that be just a 9 to 5?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'd say first, as a caveat, if you're able to sink your teeth into a job and a position in your young adult life that it serves you in whatever way you need it to,
Mm,
and you have that commitment to a 9 to 5 or to a corporation where you didn't exactly contribute to the origins of it, but if you like the direction and the purpose of the company, that's 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 not something to take lightly. I think it's really important to do work that you care about. That being said, I really like to control my flow, and I like to control my days. And there's benefits to it that are abundant. So I don't have hours that are set for me.
mm,
I sort of create the schedule because I'm the one who drives it, and that's a beautiful thing because I can take trips when I want to, and I can, if I have a light day, I can get out, go to the beach, go for a run, whatever it is. But there's also drawbacks, and it can be really that the ebb and flow can be inconsistent. So there's nights where I'll get a work call at 8:30 p.m. from
Mm,
a partner across town who's stressed out about their avocado harvest, or my cell phone will ring and it's Sunday evening. Um, so that part's funny, but nothing terrible there. I'd say that the biggest challenge about having this agency is the accountability to myself and to the
mm,
business. So without someone setting my schedule for me, or a whole lot of direction from the top down, it means that I'm the one who has to show up. And if I
mm.
don't, then it just doesn't move along. So there's days where I catch myself wasting time. There's days where I feel like I could have done a lot more. And
Mm,
if maybe if I had you know a Slack channel open with a bunch of other coworkers, it would be easier to stay on track.
right.
But I think yeah, that's sort of the line to walk, is the freedom and the agency to do it my way and at my pace. But you have to show up for yourself, and you have to move it along and be proactive and persistent.
Yeah, man. I see, as somebody who's worked in a couple different, like, I work in education, but I've also worked in like different businesses as well. And that Slack communication that you were saying is like having somebody immediately at your disposal to answer a
Mhm.
question you have without, maybe you're the end of the food chain, and then now it's like you have to figure out what it is, or it may take a little bit longer, or you have to process it on your own versus kind of having somebody to bounce it off of more formally in terms of like a organizational chart in your institution or business. So
Yeah,
that's interesting to think about, because I never really
yeah,
realized. I mean, I took Slack and Zoom and all that sometimes for a little bit for granted, but knowing that you at least have somebody available to you versus there ain't nobody but you. So
yeah, yeah. It's fun, man. It's very atypical. It's challenging in its own ways, but it also allows me to, like I said, I get to strike my own balance, and
mm,
that I think is something that we so often. Um, it's just like financial independence. It's something you strive for and you work toward, but you imagine that it comes at the end of something rather than at the beginning. So by creating my own schedule and my own balance, I get to arrive at that goal before having spent 35, 40 years in the workforce.
yeah, man. I know a lot of people that are just churning their head, like grinding, like trying to figure out what their next lane is. That a lot of what they want to create or pursue is contingent on people who are gatekeeping what they want to, like, if they give them the opportunity. Whereas when I look at you, it's a lot of like, no, I'm just gonna create that opportunity for myself, or create or be a part of a business that runs in line with my values and my own goals. And when it comes to like the environmental nature that you brought up about, like, it's not like the first thing you reference when you talk to people, but it's part of it. And that's, at least from an outside perspective looking in, it's inspiring to see that not only you're creating it, but you're also staying in line with your value system, at least when, I hear you talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that another thing worth mentioning is that it's risky. There's no guarantee when you're doing a startup and trying to get something off the ground that it works.
Mm,
We have positive trends, but there's still a long way to go. And so, you weigh that risk against the security of
mm,
a 9 to 5, and sort of, that long term sort of static position, whereas my job is much more dynamic, and the ceiling is really high, but there
mm,
is a risk because maybe in 2 years time I would have spent um, the better part of my mid 20s working on this project, and it just didn't work out. But at the end of that, this is, to me, in my opinion, this is the time to take those risks.
mm.
Uh, if I end up, without my pockets full, or without a successful venture, I'll still have time, and I'll have a chance to rebound and reassess. Whereas if I was 38 years old and had a family and a mortgage and things like that, there's just so much that's stacked up against you. You just don't have that freedom to move.
Yeah, I mean, I think about at least both of our positions. We don't have kids right now, and I know a lot of our homies from back home, or a lot of people we know in our life that are, or having kids, or buying homes and taking on these different life, you know, almost like checklists, or like not even just like life responsibilities that begin to make moves like you were talking about even more riskier, right? And I guess when I one of the things I wanted to ask you about risk was like, as somebody who's making the decisions for the direction of this company, a lot of times is how do you make those decisions? Like, what is it based on? Are you
Yeah,
how do you come to your choices on how you
right.
are going to proceed on certain topics?
Yeah, I think that this is a good segue to the mindset part of this conversation, where
Mm,
this has really from the beginning and still is today a say yes and figure it out later scenario for me. This isn't the field that I studied in. I don't have an agricultural science degree.
mm,
So what we do is we say we can do it, and we explore all the potentials, and we talk about it and think about it, and in almost every case we say yes and we try and do it, and I'd say 8 out of 10 times it works out, and 2 out of 10 times we just learn a lesson. So
mm.
it's
Where
a
now?
lot of
Where
just
where did you pick that up though? Like, is that like just something as you're doing your experiences? You're like, yeah, I'm gonna keep saying yes to all these different things. I don't know if I can do them, but I know
yeah,
that I can probably figure out and given the time to research what I need to do, get it done. Like, where did that come from for you, man?
yeah, that's a good question. I think part of it is just sort of who I am. I'm not a specialist in any one thing, but I do
Mm,
feel like I can generalize really well.
mm,
And so if I can get a foot in the door by knowing a little bit about something, and I say enough right things, then I can figure out the rest as I go.
mm,
But at the same time, I think it's a really unique time to be a young working person, because there's really nothing that we can't learn. We have so much access to information, and there's really no cap on it. Maybe you're not in a formal educational setting
yeah.
anymore, but there's online courses, there's YouTube. I learned half of what I need to know off damn YouTube. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, I think it's mostly just having the maybe the arrogance, or whatever sort of beneficial arrogance, to say yes and then figure it out,
Mm.
and then you just sort of stack up a few wins, you get some momentum, and that's what we're riding right now.
Do you ever? I mean, this was a topic I talked with one of my last guests about a little bit. Like, do you ever feel like, because you're so young and you're leading this entire project, do you ever get like side eyed? Do you ever feel like there's a certain second, I don't know, second look when it comes to the projects you're looking, or is that not even on the charts for you? Is it more of just like, yeah, I'm here and I'm here about business. I'm ready to get the work done. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, it's both of those things. So I don't engage in someone if I don't think that I have something to offer.
Mm,
And the beautiful thing about this project is that we have a lot to offer. I think that, in a few years' time, this can be a household name, and it's sort of an obvious solution to something that anyone could have done. It's just about us engaging and doing it.
yeah.
But there definitely is that. I mean, I could walk into a meeting with an old, established, experienced person, and there's sort of an initial hesitation from them to even dig deep in the conversation or to take the idea seriously, and
Mm,
and maybe it sounds a little too aspirational and not grounded. But if you know what you're working on, and you know it thoroughly, then it doesn't take long to soften that edge. There's a little bit of things that people need to hear, and if you can get there with them, then they can sort of shake that off, and then you can get closer to an equilibrium in that conversation. But yeah, there's definitely times where I walk into, someone who does the ordering for a produce
Mm,
company, or maybe it's a manager of a CSA business who would become our customer, and there's an initial doubt. But if you know what you need to know, then you can cut through that pretty quick.
mm. So tell me, about when you want to see change, what's your approach uh, to making the change that you want to see in the world? You always see the abstract, like be the change you want to see in the
Mhm.
world. How do you do that?
Yeah, I've struggled with this, man. I think that it's really important to do something rather than nothing first
Mm,
and foremost.
mm-hmm,
So, if you choose to take action rather than to deliberate or think about it or push it to the back of your head, then you're either gonna, you're gonna build momentum, you're gonna to stack a win, or you're gonna learn a lesson.
mm,
So if you want to get to whatever that goal is and you do something, you'll come away with something. Whereas if you do nothing, you're right where you started.
mm,
Um, but I think just if you zoom out and look at, all the problems, the doom and gloom in the world, and you think of what a better version of it could be, which you and I were sociology students, so we think about these things quite a bit, maybe too much.
little too
Um,
much.
yeah, there's a lot of change that has to happen, and it has to happen across a lot of human minds. And so, what we're working with is human minds, and the way you get people to change is you give them an incentive.
Mm,
And maybe that's not the case with someone who's well read and educated, or has a lot of time to learn about a topic. But with people in general, if you give them an incentive to move in a certain direction, that will make a move, rather than just explaining the why or the value of it without any reward to them. So
mm,
if you look at what do we want our outcome to be, and for me, I've thought about this a lot with the company and Green Spot. It's like, well, I want people to eat healthier. I want there to be more fresh food available. I want there to be more trees in the ground for all the benefits that they carry. I could talk about the psychological benefits that trees have in urban areas,
mm,
or I could explain the nutritional benefits of polyphenols and plant compounds in an orange. Or I could say, hey, you've got space. I'll give you an orange tree for free, and you get free oranges. And
yeah,
that
yeah,
leads to all those benefits and those outcomes.
yeah.
Or if what we want is reduction in food waste, let me just throw out a number here because it's pretty amazing. Um, Almost half, it's above 40% of all the food that we produce as a nation, not just a
Mm,
county or a little food system. Almost half the food we produce is wasted.
mm,
So if we want to reduce that number, how do we do it? We could explain the importance of nutrition and reducing food waste and food miles and emissions attached to food. Or we could say, hey, you've got extra oranges. I'll give you some cash for those so they don't go to waste. And if,
man,
if people
it
if
it sounds
people
like
leave,
it's just like a branding issue, or like almost like a the way you market it. Because like boiled down to like it's it sounds like what you're trying to say. It doesn't have to be as deep as telling you the life and like how the world needs to change immediately. Let's just take the actions. You don't need to know, but all you need to know is you can benefit from being participating in it. Is that more or less?
yeah, I think you got it, man. You nailed it. It's just about providing the right incentives to sort of right the ship or align people the way that you want the outcome to look.
Mm,
And people don't necessarily have to know or engage. It's great if they do. It's really powerful. But even if they don't engage with the mission, or all the knowledge that underwrites it, if you get them to participate, you get the outcome, and then
mm,
you can pull those threads and explain all the benefits after the fact. But in the short term, if you got that food onto someone's table and it was eaten instead of wasted, someone made some money. Someone didn't have to do the work that they didn't want to do, skip a chore, whatever it is, as long as you give them that incentive and you get to your outcome, like you said, it doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah, I love that, dude, because it's literally like we do that with education all the time. Like when it comes to creating programs for students, the research is there. There's tons of research for different populations of students, but no, none of the students, sometimes not even the parents, want to sit there and go through all the jargon. Sometimes they might think you're like kind of talking down to them in a lot of ways of like, oh, what you think this is, you know, and that may be the same situation if you were to try to get into the weeds and the roots of what the conversation is. But if you boil it down to like, hey, this is going to be mutually beneficial for all of us to go with this approach and just
Yep.
have some participation, you know, I love that when it comes to like sometimes people are just really bad at branding and they're so far down their rabbit hole of their expertise that they can't come out from to the top of it where they began and just like let people know what's up and like in the simplest form of why it's going to be a positive interaction between people, you know, or positive
Yeah.
benefit.
Make it easy to digest and get that outcome, and then you can explain all the benefits and all the nitty gritty to the boardroom or whoever wants
Yeah.
to actually hear it. But the people who are on the ground engaging with it, you just need to get them involved. Do something rather than nothing. That's
Mm,
right.
mm. Something I wanted to talk to you about is like, you know, obviously there's times of uncertainty. There's times where people are nervous, even whether or not they have the most information that they've ever had at their disposal at their hands. Life's uncertain in a lot of different ways. One of the things I want to talk to you about is, you know, for you, your lane, your life, the way you move, the way you operate. Where do you find mental clarity? Like, where do you see yourself, you know, seeing your mission, seeing your drives, seeing your goals, and how do you kind of like how what do you do to help make sense of all that?
Yeah, there's so much there. I think that the easiest way to move toward your goals or to stride and um, be successful, whatever it is that you're aiming to do, is to identify that why. You know,
Mm,
you hear this if you've even scratched the surface of personal development in any way. It's all about your purpose, finding your why, and using that to drive you rather than some external drivers like wanting to get something to wear to impress people or a big home to show off or whatever it is, material stuff or status stuff. I think that just doing some inner work, having hard conversations with yourself,
mm,
and figuring out where you're dishonest with yourself and then digging into that stuff. So clarity comes from I think a good analogy is like exercise and fitness. It's like if you want to get fit, you kind of have to suffer. Like
mm,
maybe you're cutting off your favorite food, or maybe you're grinding through workouts, and there's pain associated with that. And there's a lot of discomfort. I think it's the same thing with sharpening up your mindset and sort of getting closer to clarity. Is you have to do that hard work internally and check yourself and recognize your thought patterns, because we're stuck in our thought patterns until we move ourselves out of them. You could hear a message from outward coming in 100 times, but until you internalize it and figure out why it matters to you, it's just noise.
mm. I like that, man. It's just noise. What you consume on every level is inspiring to me in terms of developing yourself holistically. How do you do that? And how do you develop skills to process information, take information, and be what I would consider a very healthy, well-rounded individual?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, first of all, thank you. I think that it's cool to hear, because it just makes me think about, wow, I could be doing a lot better. Like if he
mm.
thinks I'm holistic and well rounded, but I know that there's still holes and areas to round out. So
I say this
it's
partly too because, bro, every time I'm with you, he's like, bro, eat avocado, it'll help your digestion out or something like that. I'm like,
yeah.
all right, I'm not
Yeah.
getting over that
No,
taste. I don't like avocados.
I think it's it's input and output, man. It's if you're driving a car and you're putting in the wrong fuel, you're gonna get bad results.
Mm,
And if you're in your body and you want to be active and you want to be able to move through the world without pain or struggle going up a staircase, whatever it is, you got to think about what you're putting in, and that's what the result is your output and your energy and
mm,
capability things, and that plays across things that are physical, like nutrition and exercise, but that also plays across things that are mental, like your mindset and your mood. And so these things are all connected, and what you consume. It's not just what you eat or drink. It's also what you listen to, the
mm,
people that you expose yourself to. So if you're checking Snapchat and reading those advertisements or clicking on um, celebrity news or stuff that doesn't have much substance, stuff that is training our attention span to get narrower and more jittery,
mm.
that has a result that comes out. There's output to that in your own life and in your own thoughts. And that's not to say I'm a master of these things at all, but it is to say that I've at least gotten to the point where I notice it. I catch myself when I'm scrolling too long on IG or having a gauge and a meter. You should give yourself breaks, and you should dive into that stuff when you need to. Eat what your comfort food is if you need to, and give yourself treats and things like that.
Yeah.
But the more refined you can get on a day-to-day and a consistent basis, just the cleaner your outputs are going to be. So the easier it's going to be to make hard decisions. It's not going to be a challenge to get out of bed in the morning, and those types of things.
So I wanted to ask you about a story then, because part of it just sounds like people need to commit. People just need to commit to what this is. What is the EPA story, man?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Jake and I were talking about sort of mindset and maybe like pivotal moments, and so um, there was a real what I think of as like a coming of age story,
Mm,
and it was when I was playing rugby. I was playing for a men's club up in Santa Rosa, which was some good high level rugby. It was sort of the pinnacle of the stuff that I played, and we were playing in Palo Alto, and the team we were up against was 100% Polynesian, were NFL body big, and um, as you know, there's a style to poly rugby where they come to hurt you, and that's not with any malice interpersonally,
oh, of
but
course
when
not.
there's a
Of
chance
course.
to lay a hit, a chance to lay a shoulder, those guys really do it. Uh, so the act one of the story is we played this team in the regular season, and it was my first time going up against them and first time playing sports against anyone of this stature,
Mm,
and I was getting bounced, absolutely Tweety Bird bounced around. I was trying to make tackles. I couldn't do it. I just didn't. I didn't have it in me at that point to commit. I was
mm,
I was playing scared, and that's something you can't do in rugby. And I played that game a long time, but it was just this big jump that I hadn't really. I think physically I was there. I was in good shape. I played a bunch of the game. I was good at it, but mentally the switch wasn't on, so I was getting worked,
mm,
and we the next week I got less playing time. I was bummed. I was in my own head about it, and fast forward a month or two, we were in the playoffs and we came up against these guys again. And I think that maybe it was just the stage we were at in the season. Maybe it was more internal, but I had decided that that wasn't going to happen again. I couldn't have that. So um, it really came on. There's a play I can illustrate that was real pivotal for me, where I was having a good game and I'd figured out how to commit to these tackles, and
mm,
everybody who steps onto that field is just a man, and if you're about your business, you can get them on the ground. Um, but there's this one particular play where my mate who was running next to me was a good buddy of mine. He had busted his shoulder, early in the game. He was out on the wing, so out there in space,
You-
and he had told me a minute or two before. He's like, "Hey man, my shoulder's shot. Like I'm not gonna be able to tackle out here. Like just be aware of that." And so we're in the middle of the field. Our fly half puts a kick out, so our team kicked their team,
Okay.
and their big fullback winger, whoever it was, caught this ball with nothing but green grass in front of him, and then my homie who was hurting, and this dude was, 6'3" or 6'4" and 300 pounds, and he had that look when he caught the ball. He's like, "Who am I gonna run over?" And he saw my buddy out there on the edge, and he just got going straight, head of steam, his ponytail flying in the wind.
Like most Islanders do, man, just looking straight for the hit, not even for the score.
Yeah, he got committed. And so I had a good angle on this play, and it was a real cool in hindsight, thinking about everything that had happened and slowing it down. But in that moment, the switch was on, and I committed. I
Mm.
was like, all right, let's go mode. There's no second guessing. I just got to do it, commit to it. So I came flying in from the side and hit this guy right on the sideline. And there's a big crowd, big Polynesian
Oh
crowd,
yeah.
hooping and hollering, and this dude gets up his head of steam, and I come flying in, just chop his legs out from under him, and we go rolling into the crowd, and everybody goes crazy, just talking mad spit to this guy who just got laid out by this little white dude, and and my buddy who had the busted shoulder was sitting there like wide eyed, like oh, and then it all happened, and in the game and stuff, it was a fun play. My whole right side of my body was numb for a few minutes after that. But in hindsight, it was really just like, that's when I stepped into that sort of commitment to act rather than to not act, and
Mm.
to just sort of, you believe you can get it done, and then you can. It's really about the mindset there.
Yeah, and I love how there's always like, at least with sports, it's so explicit. Like it's so explicit where you can identify certain times in which you agree that that's not gonna fly, or you identify that, man, I let that slide. Like you personally could identify that that was like your worst play, or that was like one of your best plays, and maybe like the
Yeah,
mental hurdles that you're overcoming with each one of those. I love that about sports in terms of how explicit the decisions are made amongst individuals to get it done or not. And that's something I'm always navigating with work, is like trying to find out like what is that analogy in the work environment, or what is that analogy to my
yeah.
own personal goals. um,
I
and
wish
so
it could be as exciting and
yeah.
as engaging as a rugby match. But it isn't, and that's good for our physical health. But I think you're right. Trying to find a way to, those moments in sports are like little microcosms of how you think and act in the world, and so being able to roll that out into your life in a work environment, you can't run in
Mhm.
and take somebody's legs out when the time is right.
Right, right.
But
Probably be pretty frowned upon.
yeah, uh, but just knowing that what the result is when you decide to commit to an action or to an idea, and
Mm,
and and commitment means doing it full gas.
mm,
Can't do that kind of stuff halfway, because then you get run over, or you get dropped from the team, or you get there's always someone who's ready to do it if you're not. So
mm. You're not that special, and it's not that deep. That's what I
yeah,
take away from that.
yeah,
um, Maybe we'll end it up like this, and say like, is there anything that you would say, as a young professional with agency over your job and the way you move, that you would, tips or tricks that you would give to people that are trying to figure out their lane, trying to figure out their why, trying to figure out their space, as it comes to what they're doing with their time right now?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to give advice when I feel like I still have so much to learn.
Mm,
You know, I think that anything I speak on is something that is halfway realized, because I've still got so much to figure out for myself. but I can say that the things that have worked and continue to work sort of look like this. And one, and I think like the first part of figuring out what direction to go in is to figure out yourself. So
Mm.
do the hard work, call yourself on the nonsense that you keep telling yourself, and all the patterns that come up in thought when you have an idea or want to pursue a goal, and it gets shot down before it even comes out of your mouth,
Mm.
right? So figure out why those ideas don't make it out, and it's really uncomfortable to do that because you have to check yourself in ways that it changes you fundamentally. So I think doing some hard work to get over the hump, and to listen to yourself and be honest with yourself. And I think a good way to do that is to isolate, not in an unhealthy way. Don't go
Mm.
off the grid, but get some space from the stuff that you're used to. Just mix it up, because when you expose yourself to change and discomfort, you're able to think differently and see
Mm.
differently. So, that could mean walking out of the house, leaving your cell phone, bringing a notepad, and sitting under a tree, and writing out some ideas. Or that could mean, getting on a plane with a backpack and taking a trip. And whatever it looks like for each and every young person to figure out why they think what they think, or to figure out, what is the driver for them, what's their goal, and what's going to get them there.
Mm.
Um, it takes a lot of internal conversation.
Yeah, man. I can't agree more. I I love the statement you posed of, question, constantly question, think about why you believe what you believe. And so I think that's a great summing up question for everybody listening of, move different, try different things, and continue just having an inquisitive mind, continue questioning stuff.
Yeah, I'd say also embrace risk and embrace change when you
Mm.
can, because you can't always do that. Or at least I imagine you can't. Maybe that won't be true, and I hope
Mm.
it's not. But I would also say, what you're doing with this project, this podcast, and the community that you're building, it's the example, right? So um, I know you, because you're a close friend of mine, and I know that you've had this idea for some time, and to act on it and to start it. I mean, you're leaps bound and light years ahead of where you were 6 months ago, right? And from
So
now
hope.
on, it hasn't been much time,
Yeah.
right? Not much time on earth has elapsed, but it's a lot of action that you took. So I think, using these kind of forums as an example is really powerful, because even this conversation might be a catalyzer, but having the platform to have this
Mm.
conversation, and to get the word out is also just absolutely vital. So I,
Yeah,
I want
man.
to send a thank you
I
for
appreciate you, man.
utilizing, and for having this conversation, because I do think that these ideas are really powerful, and to have a community that can collectively gravitate toward those ideas is even more powerful.
I appreciate that, man. And just like having you on, the goal is that there's so many blueprints out in the world to figure out. You you could pull a couple blueprints from this episode, from the last one, from some of the ones that we're gonna have in the future, and I think that's exactly it, the example, and to be able to have a reference point, being like, oh, like they were talking about, this topic and traveling at a young age and the importance of it at this point. Maybe I want to be, a little bit more nomadic with my life choices, and go explore some stuff before I get gritty. And like I love how you said freaking gritty and grinding after your stuff. I remember we were talking about that. I was just like getting after it. So that's the goal, man. Is people to, again, identify blueprints. Hopefully allow it to be a catalyst, like you said. Um, and keep it moving.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh, good.
looking forward to having our next conversation on the Humble Hustle Forum, and however many months from now, when there's been a couple more international trips, and the following has grown, and I have more to report on for the company, and we can run this back time
that's
and time again.
that's the goal, man. Just we're developing our group, man, our tribe, and we'll see where it lands. But that's it from us, y'all. This is episode 7. Actually, matter of fact, hold up. Before we end this out, just for everybody that's listening, this is a momentous episode. For those of you that do not know, most episodes do not make it past episode 7. This is huge. I don't care how many followers we have, how many listeners we have. This is huge. Most episodes don't make it past episode 7. So, props to y'all for
Shout out
tuning
to my
in.
man, he dug himself out of the hole. He's freed himself up, and we're gonna keep moving.
Keep it moving. So that's it from us, y'all. We appreciate you. We will see you on Clubhouse. Gabe's going to be there. We're going to ask him some questions, dive a little bit deeper on some of the conversations we had today, as well as, again, continually have a space where everybody can contribute to topics that are both fulfilling, developmental, and somewhere you can bounce ideas off of in a place that everybody's trying to grow. So we appreciate y'all. Thank you, Gabe. Thanks for being here, man.
Well, no.
Deuces.